Hi there. I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday. After our class discussion and going through the memos, I decided that we needed a little bit of a review on choosing authority. Also, the oral arguments made me think we need a little bit of review on choosing authority. So, we're going to have a short video on choosing authority, which is actually going to be the focus of class on Wednesday as opposed to issues of law, since you all are not going to have a pure issue of law in your appellate brief. Okay, let's go now to the video. So we've got a short review on choosing authority. I'm going to use some of the cases from your recent problem as an example of why you might choose certain cases for authority. One of those cases that came up that feel reassured if you know that if you didn't have it, feel reassured that most of your classmates did not have this case either, which is part of what led me to say, hey, we need to burrow a little bit deeper into choosing authority because there are things about this case that seem to be throwing people off. I think one of the big things about it is that it had this red flag next to it. Glad to see that you all are using your key citing or shepherdizing and that you're paying attention to those red flags. And we see here that it's abrogated by Fernandez versus California. So that means don't use it, right? Well, not so fast. A red flag means take a closer look. So if we go to Fernandez, if you hit the arrow button to search each term, it takes you to each place where Murphy is cited, and what we find out is that it's overruled on a particular issue. So in Murphy, Murphy was present and objecting to the search, and there was a split among the courts whether under Randolph, if someone was present and objecting, you could then arrest that person and seek co-tenant consent to search. Under Randolph, we know that certainly in this situation, you can't search, but the question was among the circuits, well, if you arrest the person, then can you get co-tenant consent? Well, that was resolved in Fernandez, which wound up overruling Murphy on that issue. However, they never overruled Murphy on the issue regarding whether Murphy himself had actual authority to object to or consent to a search. So why is Murphy an attractive case? Well, again, here I can see how it might have been a little confusing since Murphy was initially the person who objected to the search, but the court in that case found that he did have actual authority. He was, my understanding from the opinion, it gives across the impression that he was a homeless person. He was living in Roper's storage unit. There was some dispute in the facts as to whether he had a key. So there's a little bit of overlap already there with our case, although certainly we had other cases that involved a key. So why would you go to this kind of weird case if it weren't for that? Well, he also didn't pay any rent. And so that provides a pretty good analogy in our case, where one of the more troublesome facts is that Hennessy did not pay rent. He kept personal items in the building, and there was even some dispute as to whether he had been asked to move out of the building. So again, that provides an analogy to a slightly stickier fact, and so that's why you would be interested in using Murphy on actual authority, is that for the prosecution, it provides an analogy for one of the more harmful facts, and it's about the highest weight of authority out there that offers that analogy. Speaking of high weight of authority, why would you want Rodriguez? Well, it's from the Supreme Court of the United States and addresses our issues. So that always means that you want to take a closer look when it's that high of a weight and it's addressing our issue. On actual authority and apparent authority both, this case can be used because they talked about the fact that there was no actual authority. They strongly hinted that there was apparent authority and remanded for the court to make that determination. It's the highest weight of authority out there that involves someone who may have moved out about a month before, which is very similar to that 3-week time frame in our case. So you always want to get the highest weight authority that offers an analogy to a particularly problematic fact, even if it's a problematic fact for your opponent. You still want to address that authority and explain, well, here's why it doesn't apply. It also goes to both issues, and so both sides can use this case. It's sort of positive, or definitely positive for the defendant on the first element, and sort of semi-positive for the prosecution on the second element. Groves. Why would we want Groves? Well, Groves has a number of similarities and differences that both sides can use, and it also has that frequently cited factors list. So that's one of the things that makes Groves a particularly attractive case. It's a high weight of authority. It offers a factors list, and it just happens to have a bunch of similarities and differences. Coase, the reason why you would want Coase is it's about the only, or one of the few, positive authorities out there for the defendant on apparent authority. And it addresses both actual and apparent authority. Again, it's one of those cases that has a number of similarities and differences regarding both issues for both parties. And so that's what makes Coase a particularly attractive case. There are other cases that you might sometimes use in a smaller way. I don't just like this case because it has a cat, but Denberg is the only case that is that high of a weight that offers that specific analogy to the pet. And so you would be using that in a smaller way. Now, there are a number of other federal circuit court cases out there that may have been useful, that you could have used. Some of those are somewhat interchangeable. But basically, when there's no other case that offers an analogy to a particular fact, or no other case of such a high weight that offers an analogy to a particular fact, that's when you would want to be sure to include that case, even if it's an analogy for your opponent. All right, I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday.